Investigators believe as many as 6 members of the same radical Islamic terror cell that the gunmen were a part of may still be at large. Some people use a machine like this. The CPAP is what it's called, and it creates a constant airflow through your nose so that you can actually breathe while you're sleeping. The problem is these traditional methods don't work for everybody, and some people just chuck them aside because they're not that comfortable. We are live broadcasting all morning long as we set the scene for the Brewers opening day 2014. They'll be kicking their new season off at 1:10 this afternoon, taking on the Atlanta Braves.
It's one of the worst residential neighborhood fires in many, many years in Boise. Let me go ahead and step out of the way and show you just what we're talking about.
And I'm Nate Custer, and here's what we've been working on while you were sleeping. Matt Doyle has been following a house fire that required a risky rescue to free a young boy from a fiery basement. But first, let's go and talk about your forecast here at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Meteorologist Rebecca Schultz checking in now with that information you'll be able to use on the day. Good morning, Rebecca. CBS 58's Matt Doyle is live on the scene near 77th and Villard with new details. Matt, what can you tell us? More than a year after a Milwaukee woman disappeared without a trace, the man last seen with her is scheduled to be sentenced in court. However, it's for unrelated crimes. Chris Zacco turned 40 years old 10 days ago behind bars. Prosecutors identified Zacco as the prime suspect in the disappearance of this woman, Kelly Dwyer. Now, he's never been charged in connection with that case. However, police did find drugs and child pornography when they searched his apartment. He was convicted on the porn charges in November and later pleaded guilty to 3 drug charges, 1 felony, and 2 misdemeanors. Kelly Dwyer disappeared in October of 2013. Zacco told police she left his apartment alone after the pair had done drugs together. Members of Dwyer's family say they'll be in court today to see Zacco sentenced. Also new this morning, the push to stop Mayor Barrett's streetcar proposal continues on. Alderman Bob Donovan announcing a, quote, full court press to push his petition against the mayor's plan. And Donovan will be at the Burnham Street El Rey grocery store starting at 11 o'clock this morning, asking people to sign and circulate that petition. Now, the petition seeks a binding referendum against the downtown streetcar project. Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Yemen has now claimed responsibility for the attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine in Paris. Now, a video released by the terror group says the attack was in direct retaliation for a publication insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Meanwhile, a new edition sold out. All 3 million copies and more are going to print. CBS 58 spoke to a local Muslim and local Jewish organizations looking for reaction to the latest developments in France and the new edition of Charlie Hebdo. Time now approaching 5:04 on this Thursday morning. It's the battle of the billboards off Highway 41 in Fond du Lac County. Now, if you've driven past the area anytime within the past few years, you've likely seen them. Multiple advertisements for adult bookstores, one after another. Now, one local man's trying to stop sex shops from advertising along that highway. Jim Buell is so fed up with the practice that he's put up a billboard of his own. And Jim raised nearly $12,000 from a couple of different groups. That money will allow him to keep his billboard up for several months. Management from the businesses didn't want to go on camera, but they say they're not bothering anyone and want to be left alone. 5:08 your time, a trip to the Super Bowl. Not the only thing on the line this weekend. The mayors of Green Bay and Seattle have made a friendly wager billed as the Titletown Beer and Cheese Throwdown. It calls for the losing mayor to send hometown beer and cheese to the winning mayor's office. Mayor Schmidt has put up goodies from Titletown Brewing Company and Belgioso Cheese, which holds the title as the 2014 World Champion Cheese. But he says he doesn't expect that he'll have to pay up.
When you don't really have what your child is asking for, it kind of breaks your heart.
Megan Hilliard and her son Jonathan have an all too familiar story of just an average family doing their best to make ends meet. It's a task that's sometimes harder than it ought to be.
Be able to feed my family and not have that anxiety and depression and extra things that come along with kind of being poor.
Megan's hardly alone in facing the stress that comes with being food insecure.
Thank you very much.
That's why Hunger Task Force springs into action, collecting food through efforts both big and small the entire year.
We organize food drives and then we organize events. And so there are food drives that happen throughout the year. If you've ever gotten into the Wisconsin State Fair or Summerfest for free, if you've ever gone to an ethnic festival and gotten in a certain window for free, it's because you were donating to the Hunger Task Force.
Last year, Hunger Task Force distributed more than 10 million pounds of food to people and organizations that feed the hungry. Organizations like the Jewish Community Center's food pantry in Milwaukee.
Hunger Task Force is really our key partner. They're the organization that we know every time we open our doors, their truck is pulling up with really important basic food for families.
Of course, before that food can be delivered by Hunger Task Force, it has to come from somewhere. Oh, that looks pretty good.
It's kind of a crazy process, but you pick up a can of food and you give it at a food drive or at the grocery store, and that's going to come to Hunger Task Force. It's going to be in one of these big bins behind me. Volunteers are going to come to Hunger Task Force, sort it using our sort line. It's going to go into our inventory, and then a pantry coordinator is going to order that food.
We caught the massive food sorting process with our cameras as volunteers rolled up their sleeves to help divvy out the food that then gets loaded up on the trucks, and those trucks then deliver their cargo as well as peace of mind to families like Megan's.
For me and my family, it's made a huge difference, especially on days where, we run out of food stamps or food share money. Having a child, that can happen very often, especially with the cuts that have been going on.
Megan told us she's looking forward to a day in the near future where she won't need to lean on the assistance from Hunger Task Force. But for now, the generosity of others means not having to choose between eating and keeping a roof over their heads.
Thank you. Donating food warms our heart because it really does help us.
The Hunger Task Force is making Milwaukee great. Hear from teachers all the time. Smaller classes are better for students. And now Greenfield High School limiting open enrollment. It'll cost them some state funding, but school officials tell us they think the positives far outweigh that negative. And if a spot opens up, preference will be given to students who already have siblings in Greenfield schools. Thank you very much, Andy. Coming up before 6, how you can score a free trip to L.A. for the Grammy Awards and the after party. A close call for 2 police officers on an icy road. That incredible video still ahead this morning. Police in Paris say there may have been a 4th person directly involved in last week's deadly attacks in Paris. Now, as the investigation widens, new clues are surfacing. Don Champion has the latest from New York. Our time right now is 5:54. Brooklyn college student had to be rescued when she fell from her roof in Brooklyn. This is an amazing story. Now, she got wedged between 2 buildings. You want to take a look at your screen here. The space was less than 2 feet wide. That may have helped the 23-year-old survive what would have been a 4-story fall. Now, at first, firefighters tried to break through a wall, but they eventually shimmied down and freed her. The rescue took about 45 minutes. She was bleeding, and she did break her leg. It's 5:55 now. It's music's biggest night, and the 57th Annual Grammy Awards, and CBS 58 want to send you and a friend. And members of both teams have stayed far away from trash talking. In fact, they've even been singing the praises of one another. And CBS 58's Marciana Hester joining us here with what players are saying and not saying ahead of the big game on Sunday, Marciana.
I called 9th and Ring the New Lake Drive.
While the neighborhood in Milwaukee's north side may not actually resemble that comparison just yet, don't tell that to the folks who gathered Saturday morning to beautify their neighborhood by cleaning up the community garden. However, the people who live in that area didn't always feel so neighborly. Andre Lee Ellis noticed that the first week he moved into his home in 2011.
There was a murder in the street. We heard gunshots. When we came outside, there was a young man just kitty corner of our house laying in the streets there dead. As I watched that unfold, I looked at this empty lot.
Soon, it became Ellis's mission to transform that empty lot into a place where neighbors greeted each other and took interest in the people around them.
Young guys would come and sit with Andre and just kind of talk about some things. He found out what they need. He contacts some of the organizers and we get them what they need, whether it's information, whether it's jobs, whether it's a conversation.
Andre always would say he wanted to put, how people reference the neighborhoods as hoods. He wanted to bring the neighbor back into the hood and bring people together.
Crime has gone down on our block, especially on our block, about 95%. What used to be a busy area with police phone calls, drug dealing, and a lot of other things is now quiet.
Ellis's drive to reclaim the neighborhood went against the grain of how many had previously dealt with the situation. By simply grabbing a broom and striking up a conversation with the folks walking by, he soon transformed that into a full-fledged effort by the folks on the block to take part in the garden.
Cleaning up and letting people see the clean areas will certainly help us to build community, build and internalize this is our place, this is us.
Neighbors getting to know neighbors and working with each other is always a great thing, not just for cleanups, but long-term period.
You don't have to sell drugs or you don't have to be in a gang. You can come here and be in a garden and actually put your hand in the ground to be rooted.
And the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. His daughter Alexandria Ellis shares in his giving spirit and is proud to see how far things have come.
Like my father, I worked very hard to make a difference, so to see people really coming together genuinely, it makes me happy my heart smiles.
Ellis shared with us the motto that he lives by.
On the block where I live, I am the change that needs to be. On the block where I live, I'm helping to make the changes that the people need to see on the block where I live.
Andre Lee Ellis and the folks of 9th and Ring are making Milwaukee great.
Got some zip to it, right? Okay, there we go.
And Corbin Maxey has been spending time with us all morning long with his friends from the continent of Asia. And Corbin, you know I don't like snakes.
You might say that Eric's not your average everyday IT guy. I mean, when's the last time you saw your IT guy's name on a billboard?
Got a dream to take us there.